Who let a civilian handle our rifles? The laughter spread quickly, as a slight woman calmly shifted her footing at the base firing range. Disdainful stares followed another outsider among seasoned Marines, but when her cuff slipped, revealing a worn SEAL insignia on her wrist, the whole range went quiet. The commander halted mid-stride. Who was this woman and why? Did one faded emblem cause a veteran Special Operations leader to stop cold? Riley Shaw was 32 years old and lived without notice. 4 years earlier, she'd been someone entirely different. A name buried in restricted mission reports sealed for decades. Someone who'd earned her SEAL trident through ordeals that broke most recruits before training even started. Now she was nobody remarkable. A quiet gunsmith in a repair shop, fixing hunting rifles and weekend toys for people who knew nothing of combat. Her records were mostly locked away. What remained showed only forms: honorable discharge, medical separation, ordinary official language that concealed operations which never existed, or teammates who'd never come home from lands unmarked on maps. Today her friend Marcus had dragged her to Fort Brixton's shooting range. Come on, Shaw. You miss it, admit it. Just watching, that's all. Sure. She turned him down 3 times before relenting. Partly because he was relentless, and partly because a buried piece of her longed for the weight of military steel in her hands and the precision that once defined her life. The range was crowded with Marines in standard drills. Eager voices, fresh faces. The energy of soldiers who thought they knew battle because of training scenarios and VR sims. Riley stood at the edge, hoping to fade into the scenery. But a woman in plain clothes on a Marine rifle line was like a glowing beacon, impossible to ignore. Especially one small enough that a carbine's kick might seem enough to topple her. Mind if I try? She asked quietly, gesturing to an unattended M4 rifle. The range officer looked at her civilian gear and shrugged. Go ahead, just don't embarrass yourself. Riley lifted the weapon with motions that were too refined, too instinctive for someone who only repaired firearms. Not fired them. She loaded around, shifted her balance, and aimed at a target 200 meters away. No trial shots, no adjustments. Only the calm breathing that had carried her through sniper courses and room-clearing fights, where one error doomed the whole unit. 5 shots cracked in swift rhythm. The sound was sharp, controlled, each round placed with perfect precision, the kind forged from years of drills and endless hours of real combat. When silence returned, Riley lowered the rifle, setting it neatly on the bench. The distant target showed one torn hole where every bullet had landed, dead center in the bullseye. The Marines froze in silence. Even their instructor cut off mid-lecture, staring at accuracy that outpaced sniper qualifications by a wide margin. Probably just lucky, one young Marine muttered. But his tone betrayed doubt, not belief. Riley said nothing she knew long ago, that answering questions only made moments messier. Better to let people assume their own story, even if it was completely false. But as she pushed up her sleeves to handle the warm weapon, the fabric shifted just enough to reveal something that erased doubt. A faded tattoo on her wrist, barely visible unless you knew the mark. The SEAL Team 9 Trident. With scars drawn beside the ink. Scars only earned through training. With fatality rates higher than anyone dared admit. Commander Blake Harrison was walking past the civilian lanes. When he spotted the impossible grouping, he intended to ask who had fired such flawless shots. When he caught the tattoo and realized instantly he wasn't staring at a civilian, at all young Marines clustered around the target screen, marveling at Riley's shot. Had to be beginner's luck. One said loudly, "Let's see if she repeats it. Or if it was just a trick." Another smirked. "Maybe she's better at paper shooting than selfies. That's what civilians do best these days." Riley ignored them though the words dragged up memories she had buried for years. Black ops in hostile lands. Comrades trusting her to hold the line. The burden of being the one barrier between mission failure and disaster. She'd heard such ridicule her whole career. From trainers who swore women had no place in Spec Ops, to enemies who mocked her until it was too late. The doubt was nothing new. But what was new was how sharp it still hurt. "After so much time, you know what I think." A female Marine stepped close, brimming with false confidence, never having seen true danger. She's a wannabe. Probably binges action movies and imagines she knows real combat. The group snorted, their jokes carrying loud and cruel. They saw only what Riley let them see. A slight, quiet woman, playing soldier with weapons beyond her grasp. If only they knew what she'd paid to hold that rifle at all. The flashbacks came unbidden. Dust and blood and helicopter thunder. The heft of a sniper rifle in her grip as she covered an exfil. The moment when everything broke and success became punishment. When saving lives became cause for discharge. Riley clenched the M4 tighter, her sleeve sliding farther, showing more of the faded emblem. The Team 9 Trident might look trivial to anyone untrained. Just old ink faded with years. But to those who knew the signs, it marked service in a unit selected from the best of the best. "Let her try again." The first Marine jeered. "Maybe she'll lecture us about tactics she picked up from video games." More chuckles, more arrogance. Proof that some lessons came only through scars that most wouldn't survive. Riley nearly answered when Commander Harrison appeared beside her. She hadn't sensed him approach. A rarity considering her instincts. Made her hyper-aware always. "Impressive shooting," he murmured, his voice carrying the weight of long command. "Thank you, sir," Riley replied without lifting her eyes. Still cleaning the rifle with care. Blake studied her hands, noting how efficient the motions were. How natural she was with the carbine. Then his gaze fell to her wrist, where her sleeve slipped enough to reveal the ink. And that was the instant everything shifted. Blake had served with SEALs 15 years. Alongside America's best. Seen bravery in impossible forms. But this insignia was different. Team 9 marked with scars. He knew the whispers, shared only in sealed rooms. Legends carried quietly through the teams. A female operator called Ghost, who'd completed missions no file would ever acknowledge. A survivor of the Zagros Mountain Op that officially never occurred. A rescuer of hostages From a site labeled impossible. A name erased from records. After an incident that raised more questions than answers. Blake searched Riley's face, recalling grainy photos in secret briefings. Classifications beyond his clearance. The confidence in her eyes, the way she moved. The flawless shooting that outmatched most SEAL snipers. "My God," he whispered. Barely audible, "It's really you." The young Marines fell silent, sensing weight in the air. Without grasping why, Riley looked back at Blake with calm, steady eyes. The kind that had seen threats that would break most men. She neither confirmed nor denied. She didn't have to. Their laughter had died, their mockery gone, because sometimes truth needs no words. It only needs to be recognized. Etched in scars and ink. A reminder that living legends still stand among us. Do you believe in legends? And what would you do if one day you realized the stranger beside you was one in the flesh? The laughter faded. The jokes withered. Because some truths don't need speaking. They only need to be seen, carved into skin, as proof that legends walk quietly among us. Do you believe in legends? And what would you do if the person in front of you was a living one? Comment legend. If you believe. Some lives are larger than stories. Commander Blake leaned closer, his voice dropping into formality. Suited only for high clearance matters. I'll need a private word. Riley gave a single nod, setting the M4 down with the same precision she had shown all along. Around them, the Marines had halted their drills, aware something vital was happening, though they lacked clearance to comprehend it. "Name?" Blake asked quietly. "Sure." Riley. "Sure. SEAL Team 9. Discharged 4 years ago." The words landed like live ammo. Blake's expression shifted as he processed her reply. Team 9 was no standard squad. It was Ghost Squadron. Operators so hidden that forums debated their existence. Team 9, he repeated carefully. "But that means you're the ghost of Coronado." Riley said softly, "Yeah. I know the nickname." The Marines, who'd mocked her minutes ago, now stood frozen in guilt, realizing they'd belittled someone whose service eclipsed their own. The female Marine who mocked her as a groupie had turned pale, as if recognizing she'd taunted a hero. Blake studied Riley intently, trying to reconcile myth with reality. He'd heard the rumors, quiet talk in cleared facilities, about a woman SEAL who pulled off the impossible, then disappeared in mystery. "The Zagros mission?" he asked cautiously, testing to see if she'd admit to secrets buried in black files. "Officially never happened," Riley answered, with a thin smile that never touched her eyes. 12 hostages pulled from a compound. Intelligence swore untouchable. Turns out intel was wrong more often than it should be. Blake nodded slowly, a puzzle piece locking into place. "And the discharge?" Riley's face hardened. "Politics. Someone had to take the blame when the truth leaked. Easier to scapegoat the operator than admit the mission plan was broken. The truth carried more weight than anger." Blake read it instantly. She had been sacrificed for saving lives. Her courage inconvenient for politics. "That flawless shooting," Blake said, motioning at the target. "That wasn't luck, no sir. It wasn't, and those movements with the weapon. Muscle memory never fades. Not when it's earned." Blake made a choice. that would echo far beyond this range. He turned to the Marines, still frozen in silence and awe. Listen up. You just witnessed something rare in your careers. You've met a legend. The recruits shifted uneasily, trying to reconcile how they'd gone from mocking to standing before reverence. This woman, Blake continued firmly, completed missions you'll never read about. She saved lives when missions were marked impossible. She served with distinction at the very peak of military excellence. Riley remained still, expression flat. She'd long learned that stories complicated things, and she wasn't interested in becoming anyone's inspiration. But Blake pressed on. She wasn't discharged because she failed, but because her success scared politicians. Because heroism made the wrong people nervous. The range had fallen utterly silent. Even distant gunfire seemed muted, as if the whole base was listening. Blake said, turning back with unshaken respect. It would honor us if you shared your skill with our Marines. Riley weighed the request. 4 years she'd hidden from her past, chosen invisibility, allowed assumptions to stand, rather than reveal the truth. But looking at their young faces, shifting from arrogance to reverence, she knew knowledge that saves lives shouldn't be buried. What are you asking? She said. Close quarters training. Combat shooting, the real skills. You don't learn from manuals or simulators. Riley nodded. I can teach that. Blake smiled, the first true joy she'd seen on him all day. Excellent. When can you begin? Now, if you like. Blake turned to his Marines. You heard her. Form up for advanced drills. And pay attention to every word she says. As they scrambled into lines, Blake leaned closer. One question. Go ahead. Do you regret it? The discharge, the erasure, the cost of it all. Riley watched the Marines assembling, their eager faces bound for futures they couldn't imagine. I regret good soldiers dying for politics, she said softly. I regret that results matter less than saving reputations. But I don't regret doing the right thing, even when it ruined me. Blake nodded, silent understanding, passing between them like classified intel. The Marines you're about to train, he said. They're lucky to have a teacher who knows that survival matters more than promotion. Riley lifted the M4 again, checking it with motions so ingrained they couldn't be faked. Let's hope they never need it. But if they do, they'll be ready. She stepped toward the Marines and felt something she hadn't in years. Not vindication. That meant caring about unfair opinions. But purpose, the certainty that her skills and scars could still protect others. The ghost of Coronado was about to forge the next generation in lessons of real war. Stories spread through Fort Brixton faster than secure messages. By evening, everyone on base had heard some version of what happened. Details shifted in each retelling. Some swore she was undercover. Others thought she was testing security. But one fact stayed constant. The ghost of Coronado had revealed herself. Mockery had pulled her from shadows. The Marines who'd laughed at her became the talk of the base. Not punished at her request, but remembered in stories that forced others to think twice about who deserved respect. I keep remembering how calm she was, one Marine admitted weeks later. Even while we were jerks. She stayed unshaken. Like she'd seen it all before. And knew something we didn't. Riley, meanwhile, settled into a quiet role as tactics trainer. Blake formalized it within a week, arguing that real experience mattered more than theory. She trained in small teams, teaching lessons found nowhere in books. How to read terrain under chaos. How to decide in seconds, when lives depended on it. How to keep accuracy when the world around you was death and fire. Her students approached her with reverence that unsettled her at first, writing notes on tricks she'd bled to learn in unmarked battlefields. One asked, in a close-quarters drill, "How do you stay calm under fire?" Riley adjusted his grip before replying, "Fear keeps you sharp. Panic gets you killed. The answer is training. Until reflex takes over." "Were you afraid in combat?" "Every time." Riley said instantly. "Anyone who claims otherwise is lying or clueless." Her honesty hit differently to Marines raised on bravado. Her focus was survival, not glory. Her methods spread quickly beyond Fort Brixton. Other instructors visited to observe. Senior officers dropped in, taking notes on techniques that exceeded doctrine. One morning a plaque appeared beside the range. Unofficial, unauthorized, but tolerated. With words simple. Honor lives in silence. No one admitted to placing it, but everyone knew its weight. It honored more than Riley. It honored every quiet warrior who served unseen. Riley noticed it, but said nothing, understanding that unspoken respect meant more than medals. Her Marines began walking differently, with quiet assurance, earned from training with someone who had lived the lessons. 6 months later, Riley was offered a Pentagon post. Special advisor clearance restored. Influence over national training. She declined without reason. Some legacies are meant to stay hidden. Teaching one soldier at a time. Her tattoo wasn't a badge or a trophy, but a memory. That true service lives beyond records. For 4 years she was a ghost, forgotten and dismissed. She bore guilt that wasn't hers, and carried responsibility for failures above her. Sometimes the greatest act of service is disappearing, but ghosts don't stay hidden. When you've earned scars through trials that destroy most people. When you've made choices that saved lives and protected freedoms. When you've given everything for ideals politicians barely grasp. That doesn't fade because someone stamps discharged on a form. Riley's story shows we live surrounded by hidden legends. The woman at the store might have defused bombs. The man at the site might have pulled hostages. The barista serving coffee might have prevented war. They don't wear their history out loud because real honor doesn't need it. They don't demand respect because they've learned that respect freely given is worth more than fear. But when circumstance reveals them, when sleeves slip to show faded ink, when instincts trained in war surface again, when quiet competence is mistaken for weakness until proven otherwise, the world shifts instantly. The Marines at Fort Brixton learned that strength wears many faces, that courage can look like silence, that the greatest warriors are the ones who don't boast. Riley Shaw stepped onto that range a civilian and left a teacher. Not because she demanded it, but because truth revealed itself. Her tattoo wasn't proof of victory, but evidence of loss and renewal. A mark that meant everything and nothing. Trials no one else could imagine. Sacrifices no one else had made. And victories that would never be recorded. True warriors serve silently. But when silence ends, truth reminds us that honor never dies. It waits for moments to show us that legends remain. Teaching in shadows. One Marine at a time. Subscribe Apple Cheats. If you believe silent legacies matter. Etched not only in skin, but in the history they helped write.